9:01 a.m. on Wednesday, January 13th. Raymond, would you call the roll, please? Or
yes, sir.
Robert?
For the record, I'll note that Ms. Wilson, our chair, is out today, so Mr. Smith, as our vice chair, will be running the meeting for us. So we'll do a quick roll call. Jim Smith?
Here.
Michael Norwich?
Here.
Luis Rosas?
Here.
Patrick Byrne?
Here.
Nicholas Lamantia?
Present.
Marco Zaragoza? I don't see him on the list, Robert. Do you see him?
I don't see him either.
Okay, I'll check on him right now. So with that, I'll read the COVID-19 notices into the record. Pursuant, I should have mentioned Ray Mateus, Director of the Camino Real Regional Authority for the record. Pursuant to the suspension of certain open meetings laws by Governor Greg Abbott, this CRRMA board meeting is being held by video and telephone conference. In accordance with the various federal, state, and local orders, the public may participate in the meeting using the video link or telephone conference information found on the CRRMA's website and on the posted agenda. This meeting is also being recorded and will be made available on the CRRMA's website as soon as possible after conclusion of the meeting. During the meeting, each board member making a motion or a second should state who made each. The chair will then call for those in favor, against, or abstaining. The public is invited to participate in the meeting, just as with all CRRMA board meetings. If you are interested in asking a question or providing a comment, please submit a comment in the chat function of the video component or ask to be recognized by phone. If there are no questions from the board, we are ready to begin with the vice chair reading item number 2 into the record.
Oh, okay. Item number 2, the adoption of minutes for the RMA board meeting on December 9th, 2020. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. This is Mike Norwich.
Second, Pat Byrne.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, it stands. Going on to number 3, presentation, discussion, and action on the fiscal year 2020 audited financial report. Robert, is that you?
Sorry, I'd muted myself. Robert Suter, Director of Finance for the RMA. For the record, with us this morning, we have 3 of our audit team from Gibson, Ruddock, Patterson. We have Sonia Sanchez, Vanessa Alarcon, and Craig Gibson here to discuss the audit with us. The audit was reviewed by the Finance Committee last Wednesday, and they did recommend approval to the full board, but I will turn it over to Mr. Gibson.
Welcome to the audit team. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. As Robert said, I'm Craig Gibson. I believe each of you have been provided with a copy of the audit report. It does have an unmodified opinion, which is also referred to as a clean opinion. I would like to point out just a couple of things in the audit. If you have it available to you on page 14 is the balance sheet or statement of net position. You will notice that the total assets decreased from 128 million to 72 million, which is a couple of things. The restricted long-term investments basically went away, as well as some of our current assets. But if you go down a little bit further, you will notice total liabilities also decreased by about the same amount. So what we did this year is, in addition to funding the various projects, and then transferring those assets over to the appropriate entity. We also paid down about 25 million of our debt. So on page 27 is note number 8. And I'm sorry to be just kind of dancing around here, but so we were able to pay off those Series 2008 bonds in addition to the other normal payments. Now, if we go back to page 15, the other item that I'd like to draw your attention to is we had a normal year in the grants and normal expenditures and so forth, but one thing that was unusual is right here towards the bottom, you'll see a line called prior period adjustment. And this is discussed on page 38 in a footnote. And basically what it is, and one of my colleagues or Robert can jump in here if necessary, but there was a project, well, it was the Spur 601, that in the contract had a possible early completion bonus depending on if there's funds left over and so forth. And this project was completed in 2011, and due to the uncertainty, the auditor at the time did not record this liability. However, they did record the related receivable. So it was kind of a, we recognized the revenue, but not the expense on this. And it was due to uncertainty that we weren't certain that the expense would be paid out, but the asset was recorded at that time. So as I believe the board is aware, there was an expenditure of about $10 million in the past year related to this. And so once we saw what was going on, and this all took place before we were involved, but Sonia looked at the contracts and we determined that this was something that should have been recorded at that time. So it's treated as a prior period adjustment. So that's why you see that there. So are there any questions on that? I know this is an unusual situation, but I think it is, once you look at it, it's fairly straightforward.
I'm not too sure. This is Jim. I'm not too sure I follow you. What's the bottom line of exactly what we had to adjust?
So Jim, this is Robert. Let me jump in for a second.
Robert.
Yes, so we had the Spur 601 when it was developed. Part of it included the pass-through tolls, which TxDOT pays us twice a year, and another piece was the developer was entitled to a couple of bonus payments. One was a completion payment, and one was a bonus payment for completing the project within certain timelines. Those payments were supposed to be made to that developer when we paid off the debt. Well, we recorded the receivable from TxDOT for all $312 million that they owed us for the pass-through tolls. We did not record this $17 million liability. So in essence, in the prior years, we did not accurately reflect our net position. We were actually $17 million worse off than what we showed on paper because we did not record this liability. And so what we're doing now is adjusting last year to reflect that in actuality, while we were going to collect that $312 million, $17 million was earmarked to give to somebody else. And we did not have that earmark in prior audits. And so this is cleaning that up.
Okay, and was that 17 million, was that liability? Was that satisfied? Was that paid?
No, so you may recall that we paid off the final bonds for Series 2008 for Spur 601 in August. We then used the funds on hand to make a partial payment of that 17 million. We are expecting payment from TxDOT of our last pass-through tolls either this week or next week, at which time we will satisfy the remaining $7 million, and then we get to keep whatever's left, which is that $5+ million that we've talked about a few times.
Right, okay. All right, I got it.
Okay, good.
Any other questions from anybody? Okay,
If I may, just go ahead and continue on the presentation here. The back of the audit report includes the federal and state single audit documentation. And I would like to just comment that there are no findings. In addition, the separate letter that you received as well, which we refer to as a management letter, also we have no comments in there. So I would just like to take a couple of minutes to say that you may have realized that this is the earliest this audit has been presented to this board, at least since we've been involved with the organization. And I would like to note that this is primarily due to Robert being on board. I think we talked for a few years how Raymond was really being stretched to do the admin as well as the projects. And I think bringing Robert on was the absolute right thing to do, and you can see it in the issuance, the early issuance of this audit, and also the clean opinion as well. Any other questions?
Yeah, real quick, just for clarification purposes, I want to go back to the Spur 601 footnote for a second. Robert, you probably have mentioned this before, but so you're expecting about 12 million to be paid in from TxDOT in the next week or so, of which 7 million is the bonus balance and 5 million is incremental to the CRRMA, correct?
You've got it all correct, yes.
Okay. And I'm not an accountant, so I don't know the answer to this, and I'll ask the accountants. A bonus, is that really a liability? I mean, it's like a contingent, I mean, it's a contingent liability of some sort, isn't it? I mean, it may or may not be actually due. So how do you, what is the normal protocol for a bonus that may or may not be a liability? How do you book that?
It depends on the criteria that was available at the time. But and as I'm sure you're aware, your negotiations and contracts, Raymond has done a tremendous job working with TxDOT to increase the funding. However, you have to look at the entire situation, and if you're going to recognize the revenue that would indicate a bonus situation was involved, then you would recognize the liability as well.
That makes sense. I just wasn't sure that the revenue wasn't earned regardless of whether or not the bonus was earned.
Good. Anything else on that, or?
No, that's it. Thank you.
any other questions on that? Thank you very much. Thank you for the Finance Committee for going over all of this in detail in advance. And thank you, Robert, for doing what you do. And Raymond, you guys are a great team.
Mr.
Thank
Smith,
you.
we get a motion to approve the audit from the board?
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. This is Luis.
I'll second. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much to our auditor team. Thank you for joining us. And again, thank you to our staff.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 4, presentation, discussion, and possible action on the following items. A, change orders recently approved by the executive director for the 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan, and B, board resolution to approve a change order for the Wind Road project related to increased costs due to a right-of-way acquisition. Raymond?
Thank you. Raymond Tejas, Executive Director of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority. Robert, I'll ask you to advance this since for some reason I can't bring it up. So if we move into the next page, this is the usual PowerPoint showing you the change orders that were authorized over the prior month. This month, we've got 2 change orders that were approved, 1 that is still pending, and 1 change order that actually requires board action because of the size. The first one deals with East Lake Boulevard Phase 1. And if you'll advance to the actual item there, Robert. There we go. And of course, this is part of the backup. It's available online and as part of the board backup to the board. Change order number 28 was approved earlier this month for a total amount of $21,081.71. And what this one did is actually provide a power connection for the traffic signal on East Lake to service the new Marketplace Center, which is there. And that one was, as you know, with all of these change orders, they are reviewed and approved by the county, which is the funding, the county and TxDOT prior to approval. So that was done this prior month. The next one is for Pelicano. And that was change order number 6, a total amount of $32,319.60. And that was to add water barriers as a safety measure around some deep excavations that are going on Pelicano Drive. And that one was approved. So the next one is actually item 4B, and that deals with Wind Road. Now, this one actually does require a board approval, and you've seen as part of the backup for 4B a board resolution asking for authorization to execute this one. I should mention number 7 is pending. The contractor is working on the cost estimates for that one, and that one may be back before too long. Number 13 is the one that is seeking board approval, and that one is for damages that the contractor incurred related to delays associated with the right-of-way acquisition. What that really means is, in this particular case, as you know, we've partnered with the city of El Paso on this project. The city was responsible for certain things while the RMA was managing the design and the construction aspects. One of the things that the city was responsible for was the right-of-way acquisition for any right-of-way that was required for the completion of this project. And they acquired some from the water utility, but there was a private property owner out there that the acquisition process took a little longer than we all anticipated. So we ended up awarding the contract prior to acquisition. And in the end, this acquisition ended up going to eminent domain. And as you know, that is a longer process than usual. So what ended up happening is that the contractor had to shift some of his activities while we were awaiting the right-of-way acquisition. After everything was adjusted, the amount of delays that were negotiated between us, the contractor, and the city of El Paso was $170,217.46. And it includes various things like extended overhead, There were additional shifts that were required. There was a crane that was on standby for a longer period of time, and then there were some additional services to move equipment around that was not originally anticipated and wouldn't be needed but for the delays related to this right-of-way acquisition. And of course, as you know, with this one, the city of El Paso is a primary funding source for it. This item was taken to city council last week on January 5th and was approved by council. So we've received all of the approvals necessary except for the board approval that we are seeking today. Once you all approve this, we will execute the change order, and it will be in the next pay request for the January activities of the contractor. So subject to your questions, and if you go to the next slide, Robert, we do have a recommended board action, which would be a motion to approve a board resolution to authorize the executive director to execute change order number 13 with JD Abrams LP for the provision of additional compensation for additional project costs associated with a longer than anticipated right-of-way acquisition process. I would recommend approval, of course, subject to any questions that you may have. And there, of course, there's no action required on any of the other change orders because they are within the authority granted by the board resolution.
Okay, this Jim, I got a question. This when this first came up a while back, I was kind of surprised that we were able to, and the city and all parties wanted to continue on with a project that did not have the very simple requirement of right away to build the project that they had, that they didn't have that in hand before they started. So is there any explanation as to why everything was knowingly gone ahead with that caveat that we didn't have the right of way?
Yes, actually, let me speak generally first. It's certainly not ideal to begin construction on a project for which you don't have all the right of way acquired, but it's not uncommon. I'll tell you, we've done it on the Americas Interchange, the original one. We've done it on a couple of projects. And normally, and this case in particular, but normally what drives that are the funding requirements, the requirements associated with the funds that come for the project. So in this particular case, the MPO funds that were made available, because this is a project that is funded through federal funds as well as the local match, which is being provided by the city, those federal funds had to be expended by the end of the calendar year of 2020. So with that kind of the pushing us, we had to move forward without acquisition of all the right-of-way that was necessary. So that's ultimately the real reason why we had to move so quickly. And in fact, part of why the RMA was brought into this project in the first place was that the city was struggling with accessing the MPO funds and getting the project up and running. So we came in to expedite that process, knowing though that the time had already started by the time we were brought into the project, and we had a very tight timeline to beat. We did beat it. But one of the after effects was this right-of-way damages item.
Okay, I remember all that now, and that makes total sense, because we for a time there a while back had trouble using available funds because we were not timely in getting projects started. So I've got it. Any other question?
No.
If not, I will seek a motion to approve.
I will make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
This is Marco, I second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, item number 5, presentation, discussion, and action on a sustainability plan for the Sun Cycle Bike Share Program.
Good morning, Robert Studer for the record. The finance committee did spend time with this item during its meeting last week, and so I'm happy to go through the entire thing, or if you would just like to approve based on the committee's recommendation, it's up to you, Mr. Smith.
Okay, my recommendation is that if the head of the finance committee, if you would, that's Michael, correct?
Yes.
Michael, if you give your okay for that, then I would recommend we go ahead without getting in detail.
Yeah, that's fine. I think we had a good discussion about this in the finance committee. I think we asked a lot of questions, and I think that we kind of have a plan forward. It's all in there, so you guys can review it at your convenience, I suppose. I'm comfortable moving forward.
Okay. Any other objections from any other board members about moving forward? Okay, in that case, I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. This is Pat.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item number 6.
Jim, I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Luis. I have to log off the call for a minute, but I'll be back on in about 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, we still have a quorum, correct?
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay. All right, thank you, Luis.
Okay, thank you. I'll be back in just a bit. Thanks.
Okay. Item number 6, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing submission of an annual compliance report to TxDOT.
This will be a brief one. This is Raymond Tejas again. Each year, the various RMAs are required to provide a compliance report to TxDOT. And within that report, you'll see the report, the draft report, along with the draft resolution are included as part of your backup. This simply notes that of the various items that are required of us on an annual basis, we have completed those. And you'll see in the form that we are basically checking boxes for TxDOT. So subject to your questions, I would recommend approval of this item.
Okay, any questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve. This is Mike Norwich.
Do I hear a second?
Second, Pat.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item number 7, presentation and discussion on the following performance report for the first quarter of fiscal year 2021. A, the investment report. B, El Paso Bike Share, Sun Cycle Program, and 3, general engineering consultant team's use of local resources. Raymond?
Actually, I'll take the first two, Mr. Smith. This is Robert Studer for the record. So again, items A and B were discussed with the Finance Committee last week. A couple highlights, the investment report, we are, due to low rates, we're not making nearly as much as we used to. Another item on the Finance Committee's agenda last week was to review investment options and go over the lay of the land with the committee. And so that was kind of a coupled item with this. On the bike share report, I would just like to note that we had our best first quarter in 4 years. And in fact, if I can just scan ahead. So here's our ridership. Our ridership was up about 25% over the last few years, and same with revenue. So we had a very strong first quarter. It's one of those things that we've discussed a couple of times where through the pandemic, people have looked to get back out onto bikes. And in fact, I saw a news article the other night, I think on KTSM, talking about the shortage of bikes in the area and the inability for people to buy bikes. But both items were discussed at the Finance Committee. So that's really all I have for you.
Okay. Any further discussion on those on the bike share program? The investment report?
So
If not, I'll speak very briefly on item C, which is the general engineering consultant team's use of local resources. This item was included as part of the board backup, and unless you have any questions, we normally just note that it's included as part of the backup, and it is posted online should the public be interested. So, subject to your questions, I think that's all we have for you all on the agenda.
Okay, do we have any questions on any of that? Okay, any reason to go into executive session?
No, sir, not today.
Okey doke.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for doing the meeting for me. Sorry I missed it.
Hi, Joyce. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. I was on a different time zone and I had it backwards.
You gotta watch it out there. It'll get to you every time.
I know. Everything went well?
Yeah, everything went well. So,
Good.
wish everybody a very blessed new year, and we'll just keep chugging along.
All right, thank you.
If we could get a motion to adjourn, I think we're done for the day.
All
Wow.
right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Here. Okay, a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, see you next month. Guys, take care and God bless.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Happy New Year.
9:33 for the record. Thank you all.